Dokkan's finally showed their hand. The extreme unit support we've been waiting for is here, and his kit is pretty interesting. You've probably seen the video, so I'm not going to just repeat what you've already seen from people like Truth, Toon, Amatsu himself, whatever. Let's instead use this time to talk about whether this hints at a design space improvement for villains or if we're feeling more of the same. Starting off, Broly is going to be extremely reliant on dupes in a way that none of the other characters in the celebration are, it seems. No additionals, no crits, and no dodge. He does get super effective against all types pretty reliably, obviously, but it's worth pointing out. I believe the math is that you receive 2x whatever the number is for additionals and crit, and with him being an int unit, you're looking at 5% dodge with a 6 to 12% chance of additionaling or critting using the hidden equips. But why is that? This seems pretty suspect until you take a glance at his super attack effects. 3 potential attack raises on the turn, with all 3 being massively. It's pretty obvious that they didn't want him rolling the dice on these 3 or 4 times a turn with no other input, especially since his 12 key would have given him the potential to triple down on a massively statted defense raise for the turn as well. I mean, I think they could have given him 1, but it is what it is. Not the worst thing in the world. The verdict? Unfortunately, we'll have to wait for his in-game stats. It's difficult to discern, and he'll no doubt be the type of character who swings wildly to the absolute zenith of impressiveness when it all lines up. I think that we'll get some absurd opening rotations with the support from the new LR Tech Broly in slot 2, with this Broly in slot 1, just obliterates the first form boss, and that's interesting too. You see, we do have some new one-phase fights in the game, but these Brolys are also threatening the hardest fight in the game on JP, Goku and Frieza, who artificially increase the turn count by simply having a lot of phases. This inherently affects the rate at which these Brolys approach their revive, protecting both rotations and accessing support, and of course, AGL Broly's domain thereafter. This Broly also has an active condition that seems really good, and I don't think it's as scarily strict as people are making it out to be. Uncontrollable power is necessary to activate it on the Broly's first appearance, but even without it, he's a capable slot 1 and defensive support for 4 turns as he appears. If you happen to be missing a character here or there, like Cell Max for example on Global, there are tons of options to run that are newly easy-a'd, old, or on current banners. Team Turles, for example, easy-a'd during this celebration's countdown, and while they don't fulfill the uncontrollable power category condition, the majority of the team is planetary destruction for their own, and there will be very, very few opening rotations that don't result in the domain being activated on turns 1 or 2 of the fight. It's incredibly important that they made this delineation, and I don't think that the team struggles to make it through the first turn, regardless of whether it's active or not. At a glance, you could ask why they made this or that decision with this Broly's design, but upon actually observing the team available, you sort of see that the conflicts of interest aren't too pressing. While the content during the celebrations part 1 has been a little lackluster, this release solidifies what we should have already known during the majority of 2024, specifically because of JP's version. If you're someone who pulls for a character over just pulling for kits, you need to commit to the celebration completely. I was wary of them not fulfilling my theory just due to them being a little bit of a letdown in terms of the int TWAR EZA Broly, and even started to buy into the idea that they were going to pull a worldwide 2023 and drop 2 super units with the family Kamehameha and Goten plus Trunks waiting in the wings, but thankfully my theory is correct and Dokkan's development team has finally pinned down celebration mapping. Everything in this celebration, however high or low, has been leading up to this particular Broly's release. I would even go as far as to say that AGL Super Broly received deep consideration as early as last year in anticipation of this Broly in conflicting villain domains. We know this because Amatsu famously or infamously said that every release up until the 10th anniversary has already been planned. I'm going to give one particular criticism, not to this new LR Int Broly, but to what I suspect will be a recurring theme for villains no matter how long Dokkan Battle exists. While the Majin Pyro team is dripping in help, got easy A's, releases, revives, and support, it continues to highlight that villain teams are drenched in lose conditions. EZA LR Tech Broly, who only released last night as of recording this, is a formidable monster. He does more damage than basically anything in the game currently, at least when marveling at his colossal attack stat. He is, however, not in a position to take supers. It feels like he's hardly even close. This new Broly does provide both defensive buffing and a revive, as well as Turles floating around on the team assisting where he can, but when you compare it to super setups, which are currently running the Miracle Trio, and basically anyone from 2 years ago on their insane support setup, is really any wonder that we question how meaningful a lot of villain releases are. My newly EZA'd unit that can lose me a run on a coin flip while tanking worse or to the standard of a character that released over a year ago, it's interesting. All that said, I did ask for team protecting abilities and suspected that we were going to get at least one for one of these Brolys. I would hope so, and they delivered. It's a team protector ability. It's a revive. It's an easy revive to access. I mean, it's technically easier than the Evo Ken Vegeta's, who has a conditional. This one is just turn based, so it means you can float, it means you can do all this stuff, so yeah, whatever. They gave it to us. One downside for this Broly, and again for villains in general, is that the team is still really strict. You can run boos, you can run movie bosses, you can run planetary bosses, but he has a revenge on his list, and there are just no revenge characters to bring onto this team that are even close to being good enough, while also being extreme. I guess you could say that this implies that the Garlic Jr. we were expecting might come, but he might have a dead zone domain, which then conflicts, but then maybe it could be that the dead zone domain will be a replacement for the AGL Brolys, but that seems bad. You could run this Piccolo, but I don't know if he's good enough statistically anymore. Like, I guess you could run him as a floater, but then he gets crushed by AoEs, which it seems like there's going to be AoEs coming up. The cell just isn't there. It feels like this really just gets Metal Cooler on the team because he just got his unique equipments, and I mean, I guess. Definitely one of those cases where I think this Int LR Broly will be good for a long time, so it won't really matter. So maybe they'll fill out the rest of the year with some more revenge characters, but just looking at that list initially, I don't see the characters coming. We are due a GT celebration with a Super Baby, so maybe Super Baby. And yeah, that's your catch up for this Worldwide Download Celebration reveal for part 2. If you like the video, subscribe to join the club. We all gonna make it. I hope this feels a little more insightful. I really don't want to make news videos where people just come here and they hear me say the same information that they literally just heard from Truth or Toon or Baby or whoever. I do think we're due another big Easy A, possibly Super Easy A coming up, and that will be the Strength Super Broly Easy Aang. This Broly actually makes Strength Orbs, right? If I saw that right, so that's kind of funny. I feel like that's a hint. Anyway, I'm not gonna hold y'all. This Broly's exciting. The Gohan looks good too. Peace.